Hi, everybody. This is Marilyn. Do we have any audio this morning? Yes, we do. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everybody. This is Marilyn, and it's time for the noon edition of Welcome to My World. This is the 24th day of October, and today is Happy Monday. Sorry about that. Anyway, for those of you who are just joining us or a little new, I try to come on about noon every day, and we just stop for a minute and kind of look at where the markets have been this morning and see if there's likely to be anything happening this afternoon, and kind of get a little heads up for what to expect tomorrow morning. So generally speaking, the reason we do it at this time is because this is lunchtime in New York, and it's not always the case. I mean, nothing is ever always in trading, but the big major traders tend to go to lunch about this time. So now that crude oil has chopped around all morning and it's looking like it might want to break out right here if it gets enough volume. Anyway, this morning there were some earnings releases this morning early. Typically, the big companies do not release on Mondays. They much prefer midweek, so they can kind of they can mitigate. If they've got bad news, it gives them a day or two or three to mitigate some of their downside. So anyway, this morning, it looks like they're all pretty much on the same page, but I mean, if I had to pick one this morning, I think TF has been a little stronger. And sometimes in earnings, when there's a whole lot of small companies, keep in mind TF, the underlying for TF are the small caps. So that's kind of what you would expect about now. Bonds, for some reason, I'm not real sure why bonds really went down as much as they did, but boy, they've been in a downward move for quite a while. Very nice down move. And crude oil, I just, after early this morning, I just gave up on that. I don't like that kind of chop. If you don't mind it, or you're like Lori and you welcome chop, that's why I have this 6 tick up here. It's a little bit of an early warning sign, and you can trade chop with it. It's the IZSS on a 6 tick for the purpose of trading chop. And if you're going to scalp, you can get 10, 12 ticks off of crude oil in this relatively easy. But trying to trade chop in crude oil off of a 12 tick chart is, it's just not my thing. Some people like it and some people don't. Anyway, gold was really, really good this morning. Gold early this morning just went right on up, and then it got in a downward trend and moved down. Very, very nice trend trades off of that. And I got a little ride on the 6C bus this morning. Took a while. That was a great deal of peeing on that one. But I'm trying to warm up to a currency, and I have traded 6C in the past, but I haven't for a long time. So this morning at the apex patterns, and I have a triple crown up on those. I don't know if anybody else. I think the the Cajun boys early in the morning use that, or at least a kind of a close to the to the Triple Crown. They may have modified some of it a little bit, but it's basically the Triple Crown. And I think that's about it. We've got the VIX down this morning. It's been hanging on to 13, and 13 is when the VIX is basically in idle. It hasn't got real low volatility. When it starts dropping below 13, it is very tough to find trades on these indices. But a 13 is kind of its neutral position. So, and I keep an eye on Brent. Brent has definitely been chopping around here. It's been hanging on from 52 to 51, and it's not given us any indication that it wants to make a move. Brent's is kind of like the DAX for crude oil. It leads because it's the European North Sea oil. So anyway, tomorrow morning, we have quite a few YM traders in here, I think. Tomorrow morning, be very aware of that YM, because 3 of the biggies are going to come out with their earnings before market. So sometimes you can get a nice ride on the YM bus before the open, but when the open comes and open outcry on those stocks, hang on to your hat, because depending on what they do, that's the whole thing, and you never know. But tomorrow morning is Merck, UTX, and Procter & Gamble, PG. UTX is, if you're not familiar with UTX, it's in the Dow. It's one of the Dow 30. That company is extremely well diversified. They own a huge amount of different companies like Sikorsky helicopters and Otis elevators and all kinds of companies that are kind of the bedrock of the United States. So tomorrow morning, the YM, that's for sure. And I think that's about it tomorrow for the so-called normal news. The euro might be a good place to look for a trade early in the morning. There's a number of French and German. Oh, no, that was this morning. Wait a second. I'm on the wrong day. Okay, tomorrow morning. The euro still. There's one report that's coming out tomorrow at 4 a.m., but at 9 o'clock is U.S. news, and this isn't real heavy. It's not one of the reds, but at 10 o'clock it is, which is the CB Consumer Confidence. And Richmond Manufacturing is also a good one. And tomorrow morning, if you trade the 6C or any of the currency pairs with the British pound, the answer to Janet Yellen, Mr. Carney in England, he's head of the Bank of England, is going to be speaking. And depending on what he has to say about what they may do with their interest rates, that might be kind of interesting. And at 11:30 is the head of the European Central Bank is also speaking. So at least be aware that those will happen tomorrow. And then Wednesday, we're going to have our crude oil inventory as usual. But the biggie this week are these earnings that come out. So this is definitely time to pay attention if you trade indices to know what companies are coming out and how likely they are to rock your boat. So anyway, there have been a lot of questions posted in here, and just keep them coming. If you didn't get an answer to your questions, keep in mind what this room is. We're all traders in here. And so if you don't get an answer to your question, it's because somebody just didn't see it. And then, of course, other stuff comes in the chat and it gets rolled on past. So ask again. That's not a problem. It is absolutely not a problem. You're not being a pest and you're not driving anybody crazy. Just ask again. We just didn't see it. So anyway, the confirmation on alchemy. Okay, Chris posted a chart here. I think, Chris, don't worry, you'll get some help here from people who really trade that alchemy strategy. Anyway, this has been my view from my world in Apex land, brought to you by Apex Investing.